What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my Friday Night SmackDown audio review for October 14th, 2022. I am Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great weekend so far. And we had another very good episode of SmackDown on Friday. I was kind of skeptical. The show itself was great, but I was worried coming out of the season premiere last Friday that, they wouldn't be able to keep up the momentum. It was a very good show. It was newsworthy. The debut of Legado, the return of Zelina, great main event between Sheamus, Gunther, Intercontinental Championship. Raw as well on Monday, which was billed as the season premiere as well, was also a very good show. And you're kind of worried coming off a great weekend like that, can they sustain the momentum? Can they keep that going forward? Especially with a show like SmackDown, which has been very hit or miss in the last year or two. Really ever since Roman Reigns went part-time, pretty much since WrestleMania, and even before that, the show has not been good. And it has improved under Triple H, but it hasn't yet been like a great, consistently must-see show in the last, several months. It's improved, again, under Triple H. It's been a better show, maybe not a great show. I would still say Raw had the advantage. That could still be the case going forward, but this episode gave me more hope. And again, it was the post-pay-per-view show. It may not be the case next week, but between Bray Wyatt's promo in the main event, the Rey Mysterio surprise, that great four-way number one contenders match for the Intercontinental Championship, the return of LA Knight, and everything else that happened on the show. And I didn't even mention the Bloodline stuff with Sami Zayn, which was also, a recurring highlight on this episode and really on the show every single week. I have more faith for SmackDown than I did even a couple of weeks ago, because they've already, in the span of like a week or two, kind of bolstered the Blue Brand's ranks even more than they already did. They had Roman Reigns, they brought in Karrion Kross a couple of months ago. Good addition to the heel side. He's positioned, I believe, as the second. To me, if I had to rank, I feel like Gunther is a higher heel on the totem pole than Karrion Kross, though Karrion Kross has done well so far. Obviously beating Drew McIntyre at the pay-per-view. But you had Karrion Kross come in, Braun Strowman, which is nice, but I feel like they needed more names beyond that, and we've gotten that in the last week or two alone. Like I said, they brought in LA Knight, turned him heel on the show, so that's a nice, great addition to the mid-card, upper mid-card on SmackDown. Rey Mysterio coming over from Raw, which was desperately needed. Not even an idea I considered. Really, because the brand split doesn't even matter at this point. People go from Raw to SmackDown, SmackDown to Raw constantly. We see Braun on both brands. We see Alpha Academy on both brands. We've seen Kevin Owens on both brands. Drew McIntyre on both brands. It really doesn't mean anything at this point to jump from one ship to the other, to jump from one show to the other, which is why I don't really know if a draft at this point is necessary. But in theory, the idea of Rey moving from Raw to SmackDown to get away from Dominic and the rest of the Judgment Day could not have been a bigger positive coming out of the show. And now you have Bray Wyatt seemingly at the top of the card as well. It was reported from PW Insider and also Santos Escobar, who debuted last week, and Legado on the tag team ranks and whatever. But it was reported earlier this week that Bray Wyatt will be exclusive to SmackDown going forward, which he feels like a Raw guy to me personally. But listen, if Fox wants a big star on their show with Roman Reigns being gone, they have Drew among other people, but they need that must-see star in the ranks, and Bray Wyatt, I think, brings that in spades. Bring back Sasha Banks and Naomi, put them on SmackDown. Honestly, the show is 10 times better than it was previously at that rate. It already is, but I feel like the icing on the cake at this point, regardless of when it happens, would be Sasha and Naomi coming back and rejoining the SmackDown Women's Division. But let's get into the show here. They opened it up with Karrion Kross, actually. The first shot that we saw of this show was nothing on the actual show, but rather Karrion Kross outside of the arena being tended to because he was involved in a car accident. Obviously not legit. But Drew came out from the arena and started attacking Karrion. Now, they never addressed what happened. They kind of made it sound like, Barrett and Cole on commentary. They kind of made it seem like it was an accident, and then Drew just kind of picked up the scraps. Maybe they wanted to imply that it was Drew who did it, because Drew's been feuding with Karrion. Drew and Scarlett, cheated for Karrion to beat Drew on Sunday or last Saturday at Extreme Rules. I'm not exactly sure, but I don't think it was Drew. I don't really think that would be an overly babyface move, and I know he's pissed and he's whatever, and he kind of went after an injured man here, but after he was involved in a fucking car accident. I don't think Drew was behind it. I feel like if he was, they would have made that more obvious. You can say, well, they didn't show it because it's kind of hard to show someone getting hit by a car, which we've seen before on WWE TV, but to do a whole car accident may not come across well on the show, whatever, so that can be a case as well. I still don't think Drew was behind it. I'm not sure if it was, Jimmy Uso was gone from the show. Was it him? If so, why would it be Jimmy Uso? What beef does he have with Karrion Kross? I don't know. It's kind of weird to think about. Maybe someone in the match itself injured Karrion, so he wouldn't be in there. It probably will end up being Drew. It would be interesting if it was someone else. I'm just not really sure who that would be, because Karrion's a heel and Drew's a face, and I mean, Karrion's not feuding with anyone else right now, and they're still doing the Drew and Karrion feud, so I guess we'll find out in due time. The opening segment match saw Sami Zayn beat Kofi Kingston. The continued interaction and teases of tension within the Bloodline have been great, with Jey Uso pretending to kind of be aligned with Sami. They have a friendship and whatever. They've had, beef for quite a while now. And the story here was that he actually aided Sami Zayn to victory. But then no one, I guess, saw it except for everyone watching the fucking show, the entire audience. But no one in the Bloodline saw that or recognized it, so Jey was upset that he didn't get the credit he deserved for helping Sami Zayn win the match. So the match itself was very good. They got plenty of time for it. Zayn winning. And the continued tension within the Bloodline and, Sami Zayn and Jey specifically, Solo kind of being a background player a bit, and Jimmy Uso wasn't even there, continues to be exceptionally done. So I thought this was good. And they're also heading towards New Day, probably getting another shot at the WWE Undisputed Tag Team titles within the next month. They mention here on commentary that the Usos are 30 days out from beating the New Day's record and becoming the longest reigning tag team champions of all time at like 484, 485, or whatever, how many days it is. It's quite a lot. They can play that up and do the match on that SmackDown right before they're supposed to break the record, which I believe would be the SmackDown after Crown Jewel next month. I think on November 11th, if I'm not mistaken. And, I would obviously have the Usos win. I think having the New Day win and, before they can have their record broken would be dumb. Just give the record to the Usos and have Owens and Zayn be the ones to take those tag titles from the Usos. If it's any other team at this point, it would be insanely stupid. It's got to be Owens and Zayn. And anyone else, I probably just won't stand for. But this was good stuff to kick off the show. From there, we had Braun Strowman beating up two guys named James Maverick, which might have been a rib on Drake Maverick, who I think is not only back with the company after being released twice, but I believe is part of Creative, if I'm not mistaken. So Strowman beat up two guys here named James Maverick and Brian Thomas in a 2-on-1 handicap match with Omos and MVP watching from the crowd. So if it wasn't already obvious, they're building to a monster clash, a battle of the Titans, what have you. Probably a crown jewel. I guess they could save it for Survivor Series. I don't think they're doing the brand supremacy stuff. If they are, does it even fucking matter? I mean, Strowman's wrestled on Raw recently, so I mean, I think he's a part of the SmackDown brand. They've reported that, but I don't know about exclusive because he's also been appearing on Raw quite a bit lately as well. So either way, they are not only probably, but they are building to Braun and Omos at some point, that Colossal Clash. I personally don't really care, but the only upside I can think of is not the match itself. The match probably won't be any good. Is that if and when Braun beats Omos, then hopefully Omos' TV time goes back to being curtailed and we don't see him on the show again. He goes back to having no TV time because he really hasn't had a lot of TV time since Triple H took over. And even when Vince was in charge, we didn't really see a whole lot of Omos after Bobby Lashley beat him at Hell in the Cell a couple of months ago. We really haven't seen a whole lot of him at all, and I'm not complaining because the guy's no good. I just feel like they can find a better role for someone like MVP on the show and not have him wasted in his role because we don't really see a whole lot of him on the show at this point. I mean, I feel like MVP has a lot more to offer than what he's been doing with Omos, which is really nothing because Omos is never on the show, and rightfully so. LA Knight was back beating Mansoor, or Monsway, or whatever the hell his new name is. He got a good reaction here as a babyface before turning heel afterward in the post-match promo. The match itself was good while it lasted. Didn't really need to be any more competitive than it was, although it was nice for what it was because Mansoor is actually very good, and he sold the hell out of LA Knight's offense. He looked great here. LA Knight, from the music, which he got his old music back, from that to the entrance, the attire, the name, everything about LA Knight screams star. And he was already getting a good reaction as a babyface. I don't really know why you would move away from that. It would be one thing if he had been a babyface for a few weeks and then turn heel, but he really was never established as a babyface on the show aside from how he came across here. So, cutting the post-match promo, turning heel in the process, I have no issue with it because the guy's a natural heel anyway. And then from there, once he gets over in that role, then you can turn him babyface because he can be over in that role as well. We saw that in NXT. The guy is great. I've been high on LA Knight, Eli Drake for years now, and it's very cool to see him finally doing his thing on the main roster, as he should have been a very, very long time ago. But the guy's awesome, so I thought this was a great re-debut for LA Knight on SmackDown. We had Damage Control, all of Damage Control, Bayley, Dakota Kai, Io Sky, taking on Shotzi, Raquel Rodriguez, and Roxanne Perez. Now, Roxanne Perez from NXT was on the show because she was picking Cora Jade's opponent for the Pick Your Poison match on Tuesday's NXT. Cora Jade's going to be on Raw on Monday to pick Roxanne Perez's opponent for that show as well. She teased Rhea Ripley, so it might end up being Rhea. Roxanne chose Raquel, which I think is a great choice because not only is Raquel familiar to NXT as most of this roster is, but she's very familiar with Cora Jade. They had a soft alliance earlier this year. They were involved in the Dusty Cup. They lost. Their story never really got a proper conclusion, but of course, in Raquel's absence from NXT, Cora Jade is turned heel. So, you have that story to tell as well there. So I thought that was cool. In the process, though, in choosing Cora Jade's opponent and in choosing Raquel, Damage Control came up and challenged all three of them to a match. It was okay. It was a solid match. They kind of had some weird, sloppy, scary moments as far as some of the spots go, and even towards the ending, it was the botched ending didn't come across amazingly well, but otherwise it was a good match, solid for what it was, and I thought Roxanne Perez did very well in her role. This was her first main roster match, and I mean, just look at the year that she's had in the last year. It really is incredible to think that in literally the last year alone, she has had matches on SmackDown now, NXT TV, Ring of Honor TV in the main event of Impact no less as well, when she lost the Ring of Honor World Championship to Deonna Purrazzo, competing for the AAA Women's title in the process as well. And I think she was also in MLW right before she signed with WWE. So she's been on quite a few platforms in less than a year, and she's already very good. Early reports indicate that officials are high in what she was able to do on SmackDown, and they were high on her performance and whatever. So very happy to see her shine in that spot. She's very good, despite being very young. She's already very good at this age, so I'm sure she's only going to improve in the future. But I thought this was a good, solid showing from her. The official in-ring debut of Legado del Fantasma, Joaquin Wilde and Cruz del Toro, taking on and beating the duo of Hit Row, Top Dollar, and Ashante the Adonis. This went all of like a minute or two. It really did not need to be longer. Not that Hit Row should be squashed, but the crowd just didn't really care. The crowd did not give a shit. Santos came out with Legado, as did Zelina Vega. They didn't speak at all, but it was the match. They won the match as they should have, and Hit Row is just not over yet, and hopefully they will be. And I like the group. They certainly are missing something with Swerve in their corner. That's kind of like their biggest knock right now, is the fact they don't really have that it factor about them. Although they're entertaining to me, I like the group, but they really need that one central figure to kind of build a group around. I don't think Top Dollar is that guy. I think Top Dollar is great in his own way, and I think he can be a nice supporting character. But for someone like a Swerve, I'm not sure if Carmelo Hayes is that guy. People have brought him up. I think he's honestly above a group like that, in my personal opinion. But then again, was Swerve above a group like that? Probably not either, and he made it work, so who knows. But this was a match for what it was. Legado won, and that was pretty much it. And again, the crowd didn't really give a shit because Legado just debuted, and Hit Row is just not over, so the crowd didn't really care. But it was fine for what it was. And then we get to a 4-way Intercontinental Championship #1 contenders match. Rey Mysterio beating Ricochet, Sheamus, Solo Sikoa to earn the next shot at the Intercontinental Championship. So earlier in the show, they had Rey Mysterio confront Triple H backstage and mentioned the fact, listen, I quit after, Dominic, that whole thing going on Raw right now with the whole Judgment Day storyline. He's not happy with how things have gone for him on Raw. Confronted Triple H about it. Triple H brought him into his office. Clearly gave him the fourth and final spot in the Intercontinental title match or the #1 contenders match, rather, after Karrion Kross got hurt. And that's how that played out. Mysterio won the whole thing. Very good match here, seeing Rey interact with Ricochet probably for the first time since... I feel like they've interacted since then on Raw, but they had that awesome match on Lucha Underground many years ago, and I don't think we've seen a one-on-one match between them since then, at least not on a major stage. But they interacted here, which was great. Him and Sheamus was cool. The commentators noted that they have never gone one-on-one before, which is wild to think about. And Rey and Solo is also very good while it lasted as well. I thought it was interesting, as a lot of people are not bringing this up, that I think that Sheamus and the Brawling Brutes were brawling at ringside because he didn't factor into the finish. I think Sheamus and Solo were brawling at ringside with Jay and Sami as well. So it looked like it was Brawling Brutes and the Bloodline going at it. I don't know if that means anything. I don't know if they did that just to factor them out of the match. They didn't factor into the finish and they weren't pinned. I don't know. Just because I feel like that might be what's next for Sheamus and the Brawling Brutes. It might be a feud with the Usos, because the Brawling Brutes already got a title shot at the SmackDown tag, or the Undisputed Tag titles, and they lost. But maybe they make the match with the New Day a triple threat, that they're still feuding with the Usos, because they kind of got cheated by, Imperium, so they didn't really lose clean. But I guess you could tell that story as well. But I think Rey Mysterio becoming the number one contender was the right call. I thought it was a very cool moment. And he's back on SmackDown where he belongs. Like I said earlier, I think he's a great addition to the babyface side. He's away from Dominic, first time on his own in several years. And I think it's a nice way to kind of put a halt on the Dominic storyline for now, which personally I'm not really into, but it's clear they're building to a WrestleMania match. And you can't have them on the same show. And unless you're going to take Rey off the show for several months, they're not going to be in the same show together for 6 months and continue feuding that entire time. It's not going to work. So putting Rey on SmackDown in the future, for the foreseeable future, while he continues to deny to face his son, I think is a good call. And I think it's a great addition to SmackDown, like I said before. He can have a lot of exciting matchups, including, hopefully first and foremost, maybe not first, but at some point, with Santos Escobar. And Rey and Escobar at some point could be fucking awesome. So hopefully we do see that in due time on the WWE main roster. We got to the main event, Bray Wyatt. It wasn't a main event match, but the main event segment, Bray Wyatt addressing the audience as himself. He came out with new music, looked like regular old Wyndham. We met him earlier this year, and he looked exactly the same way that he did in the segment. Just kind of speaking from the heart, getting emotional, thanking the fans for their support. When, fans came up to him and said, listen, I never gave up, you saved my life, blah, blah, blah. That helped Bray during a time in his life where he thought his career was over, he had nothing to offer, nothing he did ever mattered, whatever. And now he's back where he belongs in WWE. So I thought this was an amazing promo. Just seeing Bray Wyatt as Wyndham, as himself in the ring was phenomenal, because we've never seen that in the near 10 years he's been in WWE. From the first time we saw the Wyatt family character in 2012 to now, he's never once played himself on screen. So I thought that was a nice touch. And then he was interrupted by the same the black masked figure, whatever it might have been, from Extreme Rules last week, which was obviously just a different version of himself. So if they're telling the story that he's feuding with himself or something along those lines, it could be very interesting. So I guess we'll see where they go with it from here. And he's not going to be feuding with himself for long. It might be different versions of himself. There might be more to the Wyatt Six rumors that we've been hearing as far as they want this person in it, they want that person in it. If there even will be a stable, there might not be. I feel like we just already have a lot of stables already in WWE. I don't know if we need another one. But I don't want to completely shit on it yet because I feel like it could be interesting, especially given who's involved with Bray Wyatt, and the guy is a creative genius, so it could end up being something very cool. I have hope that it will be. But either way, I thought this return promo was fantastic. I was kind of worried he would just kind of come out, say, I'm here again, and then leave. I thought that would have been dumb. Because they kind of pulled the bait and switch on Raw, kind of people thinking he'd be on the show, and then he wasn't. That's like, fuck. But this did deliver. I thought it was an amazing promo, and maybe he may not be himself for long. This might have been the one and only promo where he ever cuts out of character. But maybe it won't be. Maybe it'll be another split personality gimmick where he's like regular old Bray Wyatt as a babyface and he uses this music as himself, which is interesting. It sounded like they made the song for him, did Code Orange, as they indicated on Twitter. So I'm not sure if they would make him this whole song only for him to use it once. But I guess we'll see. And it's very interesting to see where they go with it, how they play it off. And if nothing else, I thought it was a great ending to a very good show. That kind of left you looking forward to seeing what's going to happen next. And we're going to have to wait until SmackDown to find out, because it seems like that Bray Wyatt stuff will be exclusive to SmackDown going forward, which is a very good hook for the Friday night show. But like I said, a very good show here between Bray Wyatt being back, LA Knight being back, Rey Mysterio coming on, And I completely forgot to mention, Rey Mysterio and Gunther should be great. That should be a very good match I'm looking forward to. Gunther just chopping the crap out of Rey Mysterio in midair should be awesome. The women's stuff was fine. Legado picking up their first win. The Bloodline stuff was great. So, very strong show this week. Clear direction for a lot of people moving forward, which is fantastic. And we'll see where they go going forward. It's going to be very interesting next couple of weeks on SmackDown as far as some of the storylines go, where they go heading into Crown Jewel in early November. And they have the players. Now they just need to make the most of who they have on this show and push them accordingly. I feel like it would be a mistake not to. And hopefully they can keep the momentum going, because SmackDown hasn't had this sort of positive buzz around it in quite a long time. So if they can build off this, continue to generate and create compelling storylines and give away good matches and stuff like that, then it's going to make the show even more consistently enjoyable to watch on a weekly basis. But that was SmackDown in a nutshell for October 14th, 2022. Thank you guys for checking out my review. I appreciate it. Be sure to drop a comment, share the video, subscribe to the channel, like the video. All that stuff is greatly appreciated. And we'll be back with another SmackDown audio review next week. So until then, guys, enjoy the rest of the weekend. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.